Hello and welcome to the tax deed and lien class. I am so excited and so thankful to be able to have this conversation with you. And let's just dive right in. I am Jennifer, I'm your partner, and I'm faculty in our Financial Freedom Academy here at Live Well. And if we've got to talk about the things that I've done, I'm an author, a speaker, a mom. I, of course, invest in real estate, and I have a background in business. I have my MBA, strategy, training, and women's empowerment, which is really where I've spent time now for the last decade or so. Um, because it's what I'm excited about. It's what I'm passionate about. And so my Live Well brand specifically focuses on empowering women in purpose, in business, and in wellness. And part of that includes our Financial Freedom Academy that really dives into money mindset and real estate investing because as a researcher, I do have my doctorate centering on women's empowerment and health. I'm truly a researcher, and I dove in. I looked at financial data and information, and said real estate is a really important part of this financial piece. So when I just blend together my range of experiences, that's really what brought me to creating Live Well. I have worked in a training and education capacity at a national level for quite some time. And so I'm certainly here to be a resource for you. And here's a quote that I like to share. We have to start where we are with what we have. Tax lien and tax deed investing offers a great springboard for financial growth in a manageable way. You can snowball over time and truly build a legacy using this approach. And I firmly believe this. We talk about money mindset in the academy when we're talking about crafting our real estate strategy. We really have to think about what is our level of risk tolerance and also what funds do we have available. And so, I often have one-on-ones with women who have money and are looking for something to do with it. And I love having those strategy conversations where tax deed and lien investing is often a part of it, especially if you're not necessarily ready to spend $1 million on a portfolio or even ready to spend $100,000 on a portfolio. We all have different competing factors that we're working with. For me, I have, in terms of blending my background, and part of what brings me here is that I'm really passionate about convening women, and I want to have a large community space, a large area of land where I can convene events and also, grow medicinal herbs, right? I have that wellness background, and everything just comes together. And so for me, part of considerations for achieving that is that I have to honor the people in my household who may be risk averse or who may look at finances differently, where I'm ready to dive in and jump in and invest. And maybe, the people that I share, that I share a bank account with aren't quite so ready. Excuse me. So I've got my water here. And so, I find that for me, tax deed and lien investing help with an approach that is attainable, particularly if you have less funds. And then as you get more and more funds, we talk about this. I don't know what got in my throat. We talk about this in the academy. How do you scale in terms of a business so that it's not just a one-off tax lien purchase? We want to have a strategy about this, right? So, of course, I have to say I'm not your accountant. I'm not your lawyer. I'm not your realtor, but I am certainly a passionate and dedicated advocate for women, advocate for building generational businesses. I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur, and building generational wealth. And so, that's what brings me to this space. That's what makes me want to share resources, offer this free class, because I'm genuinely passionate about showing people that you can do this. You can absolutely do this. And anyone can do it. You don't have to have a PhD, MBA, fourth gen entrepreneur to do this. For me, that was my path. I think we all have our own paths and we get here in different ways, and that's fine. There are also a lot of lawyers who pursue this path as well. And even then, I mean, you don't have to have that terminal degree to get there. The good news is once you get it, you get it. Once you get the process, you get the process. And that's why the tax liens and the tax deed investing really has to fall inside of this larger real estate strategy picture, which is why I focus on, hey, let's connect together, let's talk about a strategy, because you have to know where it is that you want to invest. So let's have a little conversation. The most common question I get asked is, what is the difference between tax liens and tax deeds? And so when we look at tax liens, they're characterized often by having a redemption period, interest payments associated with them, whereas tax deeds, you may have to quiet the title, and even with liens, you have to quiet the title. And what it really boils down to is what state you're in terms of how this all rolls out. So something like a tax lien means that someone did not pay property taxes, and now there is a lien on their property, meaning someone is saying you owe us money. And so if you purchase through the tax lien route, then what you're doing is saying, I don't yet own this property. So that's very key. I don't yet own this property. And the current owner can pay me back what they owe with interest. So it's still a win-win for you. Or if they don't pay you back, then you have to go through, oftentimes you have to go through the legal process of foreclosing on it so that you can become the owner of the property. The tax deed process is a little different in that your property will be yours. And you really just have to look at the instructions by state. And this is part of the benefits of the free class here, is that we're diving into what you can potentially expect. And I do a full screen share in the Academy of navigating some of these websites, but you have to read the instructions. If you can read, you can invest in tax liens and tax deeds. I've worked in federal setting, I've worked in the university setting, and so I think that's why I have an inclination for being able to withstand paperwork and read volumes of information. But the good news is, once you read it and know it, then you're fine, you're good to go. And that's why, as part of your strategy, I specifically walk you through choosing the best geographic areas for you. I don't tell you what to choose, I share with you what to think about. And so that's why strategy is so important, because you cannot know the tax lien and tax deed laws for all 50 states. I mean, it's impossible. I highly recommend starting in maybe 1, 2, 3 states. Every state is different. Some of them do tax sales once a month, like I'm in Texas, like the first Tuesday of the month. Others do it once a year. And so you really have to get to know the geographic areas that are most beneficial for you investment wise. Um, and then go to their websites to learn more about what their process is. So the deeds and liens are a little different. Um, in both cases, you will have to take time afterward to secure your property. So depending on the deed type that you get, you will just want to make sure that the property is yours completely. And so let's talk a little bit more about the process. I just wanted to differentiate that because by state you might see that different terminology, and it does mean slightly different things, where sometimes you're navigating what is really somewhat of a loan almost kind of situation with the tax liens versus the tax deeds, which are a little different. So, think about where it is you want to submit your bid. There are benefits of having some location flexibility. So as part of your strategy, when you define where it is that you want to focus on, the benefits are each place offers it at different times of year, for example, so you'll have greater options. And then I also wanted to share with you in terms of, who are you bidding against? Some of these can get really competitive. If you're early in the game, maybe you don't want to choose somewhere like LA. Okay, I think you really want to think about where you can be competitive, and then make educated bids. Do research in terms of prior bids that have been accepted and won, and then also go into the bidding knowing what your ceiling is going to be, and that means backing into your full continuum of your purchase. Before you buy anything, you want to know how you're going to exit. If you're focusing on land, are you going to hold it? Are you going to sell it? If you're focusing on a home, are you going to renovate it? Are you going to sell it wholesale? Do you want to hold it? You have to think about your exit. Where in all of that, you've got to build in enough money for the person who gets it to have some equity. Pardon me, it's up to you how much of that you want to focus on. I'm a firm believer in doing solid business, keeping it above, and just making sure there's enough finances behind, whatever it is I'm selling, the land or the house, that the person I'm selling it to will have equity. Because the best advice that I've gotten that I also live by is that you make your money at the buying table. A lot of people want to rely on refinancing, which is an important part of real estate strategy. Just keep in mind, refinancing is not guaranteed. And so getting long-term equity in a home is nice, but you just have to keep in mind it would be long-term. And so once again, strategy helps you land on what kind of mix you want for yourself. Do you want to focus on that long-term equity? Do you want to focus on that short-term cash flow? And then from there, that helps you back into, where you're going to bid and how much you're going to bid. Okay, you don't want to bid full price for what you want to sell it for, because then that means you leave yourself no room to earn income or to renovate or whatever it might take. So just make sure that you have an idea before you go in. And then I want to add, especially, sorry, this is the class. Look, we are having a conversation, so I've got my water. I usually have a little mint in it. I told you all I love herbs, and I look forward to a large land space where I can grow them. As you continue growing in this tax deed and lien space, I encourage you to scale if that's what you want to do. So I have in my mind percentages of each sale and what I do with the money. Okay, so I say I want to save this amount, I want to reinvest this amount in future purchases, I need to allocate this amount to unexpected expenses, I need to allocate this amount to possible taxes. And for me, I use percentages because then that means no matter how much money has come in, I know how to break it down. And as you continue to scale, you have that reinvestment piece of it where you have more funds and you can continue to grow. And so just think about who you might want on your team, especially as I start moving through what the continuum looks like. This is not immediate, but I like to zoom out because we get so excited about doing, this one thing. I want to buy my tax lien, I want to buy the tax deed, I want to be an investor, but it's really part of a bigger picture. And if you're trying to do this long term, you want to have a sustainable approach and you want to have support. We can't do this by ourselves. So I'm happy and excited to be a part of that for you. Okay, part of why I love investing in tax liens and deeds, I stick to the deed side, is that there are properties galore. If you all are familiar with wholesalers, that life is a hustle. You've got to find properties, you've got to drive neighborhoods. I think everyone has to find out what works well for them. I also think you're watching this particular class because tax lien and tax deed investing resonates with you. I think we all have our place in this real estate puzzle. And so what I like about tax liens and tax deeds is that there is no shortage of properties. Once you have your chosen jurisdiction, narrow down the list to maybe 5 or 6 that you can do some due diligence on. If for some reason your chosen geographic areas don't have anything, we've got 50 states, okay? We've got 50 states that have properties and tax lien and tax deed sales all the time. So it is properties galore. For us, it's not going to be the hustle of I need to find a house this week to sell. There are always properties available to purchase. And I will add also just underscoring the fact that the websites are the resource for you, in that some websites you really just mail in a form and a check. Others, they do want you to mail it in as part of an official bidding process at a certain date. Others, sometimes you have to go in person. Some only post it in the physical newspaper, the announcements for the tax deed sales or the tax lien sales, in the physical print newspaper. And sometimes you can find it on the newspaper digital websites. And so I can't emphasize enough that once you can narrow down your area, you can become the expert in terms of where to find the properties and when. You don't want to miss the one annual sale, right? But then having said that, properties are everywhere. So let's move forward. So let's talk a little bit about what your search may look like. And once again, I do a screen share inside the Academy where I just choose a random locale just to show you that anyone can do this. So it's a locale that I may not be knowledgeable about. And I click through and kind of offer you a stream of consciousness in terms of what I'm thinking about when I land on a property, and is this one I would be interested in moving forward with or not, and why. And so if you do access the Academy and you can do that walkthrough, see that walkthrough, I will also give you a free gift, which I will tell you about later in this class. You'll get a couple of free gifts, which I'm really, really excited about. So what your search may look like, you've got to love research to do this. You're almost a real estate researcher. Is once you select your states and counties to assess the properties and access the properties, you will then scroll through. Some lists are longer than others. Some lists are with legal offices, others are straight on the county website. You really you have to know your local area. And that's why it's too much to just say the world is your oyster and you'll do all 50 states. I mean, it's too much. In some places, I'll give you some keywords so that when you start Googling, you'll know what to look for. Some places they're posted on the county appraisal district site or city appraisal district sites, the property tax website, sheriff's sales, Sometimes there are constable sales. I mean, it depends on where you are. But what you can do, a super easy approach, is type in your area and then type in property tax sale. Then that leaves it open. You don't have the lien word in there. You don't have the deed word in there because, as I've said, it really just depends on where you are, what the overall approach will look like. And then you will stumble upon the site. And I can't say enough, to just demystify this for all of you, is that it's about following instructions. You know what money you have. You identify how much you're able to bid, willing to bid. Which sometimes just think about bidding on the tax amount. You don't have to necessarily go, way above and beyond that. Bid on the amount of taxes owed on the property. See how that does for you. And then you just have to kind of start learning your area. Increase if you notice you're not making the bids, if you're not getting the properties. And so you get to the website and it will lay out full instructions for you. And this information is free. That's why I made this particular class free, because these websites are city and county websites where you just go there and they will walk you through the process if you take the time to read. And then every state has a property tax code. The property tax code in Texas is about 600 pages. But I do encourage you, when you're open to a little light reading, to check that out. At least look for do a Control F word search for the words tax lien or tax deed, and they will share with you information in the actual code about things like the redemption time period. So when can the property actually be yours if you've done a tax lien property? When can you start doing that foreclosure process? It's not completely 100% that in a tax deed sale you won't have to do any back end work to secure it. You might have to quiet the title in both cases, which just means, you call it a lawsuit, but it's not intense, but it's just showing that you do own the property. And so these sites will walk you all the way through that. The property tax code shares with you things like the amount of time you have before the property can officially be yours. At the same time, the city and county sites, they are pretty clear. If you don't have time to read those 600 pages right this second, I encourage you to do so. And every state is probably not that long. Texas has some nuances to consider and a lot of oil and mineral rights relating to land. So it gets interesting. All right, let's talk about your gifts. I'm so excited. So to build upon this discussion and kind of insert it into a strategy, I highly recommend you join me in the academy. In there, I will offer you a shopping list by state and by locale, and it will be a completely free gift. It is not part of the pricing for the academy. I actually added this after the academy was live. And so I call it a shopping list just to make this fun. I mean, as we're doing this, we want it to be enjoyable. It's not a race. It's not a sprint. It's definitely a marathon. And it's not risk-free either. I mean, it's definitely a process. And so I wanted to offer something that was as helpful as possible. So I've pulled together many states, not all states, I would say, it's about maybe 30 states or so, maybe more. And the states I didn't choose, it's because I didn't necessarily feel they were, going to be high ROI, return on your investment kind of states. And so I offer you a shopping list. Here's where you can go to purchase these tax deed or tax lien properties. And if it were easy, everyone would do it. As I've said, it's literally based on locale. Do you know how many cities and counties there are? I mean, even in Texas, I believe there's like 300 something counties. And so what I've done is I at least have given you a starter shopping list for free if you join me in the academy, so that you can click around and say, here's where I can start. Because sometimes it's just so overwhelming. And even with Google is a lot, right? I mean, you are given plenty of search results and sometimes you don't know where to start. So I'm happy to gift you with that shopping list. And then I will also gift you with some information on the REI strategy, so the real estate investing strategy, that you have not heard about anywhere else. Get ready for this one. I think it is really creative. As usual, I am interested in offering strategies where you may not have as much cash as others, or you may scale so that you're doing more investing, but you're still using strategies that are not as expensive, like tax lien and tax deed investing. And so this particular strategy is a pretty low barrier point to entry. You don't hear about it often, and so I'm giving you an overview of that as well as a free gift. Once again, it was added afterward. It is not in the price of the Academy, and I'm so excited to share that with you. So let's talk a little bit about the Deed Dynasty method. If you are in the Facebook group, that's what we are called, the Deed Dynasty. And these are suggested decision points for you in terms of buying, investing in tax deeds and liens. So first you want to do your search, which we have talked about that quite a bit. You also want to do due diligence. You are responsible for the liens associated with the property. That means you want to get on that appraisal district website, that property tax website. See how much is owed for the taxes, which you will probably already have that if you have the tax sale list. But you also want to know, are there other liens associated with it? And I share some more resources in terms of doing this due diligence in the Academy, but for the free class, I want to try to keep it as user-friendly as possible. So, you've got to do the title search. Some people get really manual about it. It really depends on your resources, where they look up the owners of the property and then they leverage public records, looking up the owner names or looking up prior owner names to see if they have any, at least local or even state level public cases that might involve liens. Because what is important to know is, even if it's a tax lien property or a tax deed property, it may have other liens attached to it. It may have IRS liens attached to it, meaning, the prior owners might have owed the IRS. They may have medical liens attached to it, meaning basically the owner's home has been used for collateral, and that follows the property itself. A lot of times, and you just have to, once again, kind of know that property tax code or read the directions, the instructions on the city or county websites. A lot of times, some of these liens will be wiped out, but not all of them. Not all of them. So due diligence is very important before you dive in and purchase a property or bid on a property. Then you have to decide, do you want to quiet the title based on your due diligence? Do you think it's necessary? For example, I have some resort land in Arkansas. The prior owner, is like from 1994, and so the questions about, is quiet title even necessary? There's statutes of limitations, which of course you would find in that full property tax code. These are things that you think about and things that you can work with a title company about. And then after you quiet the title or not, decide whether or not you need a quitclaim deed. A lot of times that's the kind of deed that comes with these types of purchases, like the tax deed purchases. Sometimes you get a special warranty deed, and I encourage you to consult with an attorney, because it really depends on a case-by-case basis what deed type is most helpful for you. Sometimes a special warranty deed means that a title company won't necessarily offer you title insurance, but they would for a quitclaim deed. So you really just have to have partners, have that team, have some realtors or a title company you can pick up the phone and call. And if this is your first purchase, after you get it and it's yours, they're more than willing to work with you and speak with you, especially if you intend to sell soon, because that's income for them, right? I mean, we're all an ecosystem here. And then hold or sell your property. So this entire continuum you should have an awareness of before you even buy your tax deed property. You can sell on market or off market. Wholesalers would gladly sell your property. And that also means sometimes it's not, subject to the requirements of, or the standards that the realtors or the title companies would want, because in the investor space, investors know inherently there's a level of risk with this. Some investors say, I'll sell the deed how I got the deed. I mean, everyone kind of takes a different approach. I just 100% encourage you to work with a professional that knows how to sell it, and just make sure that you're following ethical and reasonable industry practices, for doing that. A lot of times people with cash, I like to sell to cash buyers. A lot of times people with cash will just pay you the money, wire it, and then you file the deed paperwork. You can work with a real estate attorney the first time, or a title company the first time, or, as I've said, the benefits of having an overall strategy is that you're working with a few geographic locations, and you can start learning how to file that information yourself. I've owned my first property maybe 15 years ago, and the more you engage in these processes, the less scary they are. The first time you're really just kind of going to have to take a leap and have faith, that it will work out. And it is not nearly as complicated as it may seem. So once again, I just want to reiterate and reemphasize, read. They give you all the information that you need to know, which is why it's important to just narrow down your locale. And then that's also beneficial because you can understand the paperwork that is required. There's usually a web page that says this is exactly how a deed needs to be structured. It's a piece of paper, you get it notarized, and then it's not official until you file it with the local jurisdiction. So it's a reasonable process. If you're not comfortable with the selling end, by all means, speak with a realtor. I mean, they would take their commission, which is expected and appropriate, and sell your property for you. They're going to make sure it has the appropriate deed. They will walk you through what is needed. So rely on help. You don't have to know it all. And I'm also, of course, here to answer any questions you may have. My website has an email link down at the bottom. If you're in the academy, of course, we can chat in there, and you have 375 minutes of trainings, and you have tools, and you have lifetime access to that. And then I also provide one-on-one coaching information in there for us to talk more. So you've got support. Don't end up in this analysis paralysis phase. I want you to dive in responsibly and get started. So here's the link for the academy itself, where I have to share that tax liens and tax deed investing is an awesome way to build a business. Every business needs a strategy, right? So that's where my entrepreneur background, my business background comes into play. And so I would love to help you flesh that out. We have a full real estate investing strategy blueprint that you will customize and fill out. And once again, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not your attorney, I'm not your accountant. I am, however, telling you very critical, important things to think about so that you can have a strategy that works for you, your short-term and your long-term goals. We all have different monies available to us. We all want to retire at different points in times, or have more time or less time left. And so I will 100% walk you through that entire process. So invest in it for yourself, and so that you have something sustainable, so you don't feel like you're just floating out here clicking on tax deed sites to hopefully do a bid. Okay, it's more than that. It's enjoyable. You're doing something for yourself, for your family, whether you're your parents or for your children. We are part of a larger community, and building businesses in this way helps us to be a resource, and we talked through the money mindset piece of this. Wanting to build a business is empowering, it's inspiring, it's important. And if you're able to be financially free and capable, you can be the raft for others. So let go of any guilt you have about wanting to excel and advance. So you are in the right place. Let's get you started. right now. Get started today. I encourage you to take just one step toward that. And starting your strategy could be the way you do that. Here's where you can connect with me on social. I'll be fully transparent, with those of us that are into tax deed and tax lien investing. It's not as showy as real estate. I don't have, I should say real estate sales, right? Or, the real estate aesthetic side of things. As I've said, it's very administratively oriented, which tends to align with a different personality profile. If you look at who real estate investors are and kind of how we show up compared to real estate agents, there is sometimes an intersection. Agents that invest because, obviously they've got the inside scoop, right? But I have to say, as an investor, I'm absolutely present on social, but I don't have all the flashy things. Okay, if you want to reach me, that email link on my site, jenphd.com, is honestly probably the best way you will contact me. But I do show up on Instagram at Dr. Jen Edwards. And hey, and I love the real estate agents. Without you all, we certainly would not be able to sell properties and offer land and homes to people who need them. So I'm completely supportive of everyone. I feel like we all have our place in this overall journey, and we've got to work together and we've got to support each other. So I'd love to hear from you. Let me know your favorite thing that you've heard during this free class today, or let me know what questions it is that you might have. And then also make sure to subscribe to our news journal list for occasional messages on REI strategy, tax liens, and deeds. It's on the free class link. You will see buttons here and there to subscribe to our news journal. They're not frequent at all. As I said, my primary work is helping you all develop your strategy, develop your business, and invest. It's not to write newsletters. So as I have meaningful content to share, or if I hear a lot of questions about, a certain thing, then I certainly, put them up there. For example, someone asked about how long does it take to redeem a deed in certain states? In other words, how long does the owner have to come back to you to say, oh, actually, I want this back? Whereas I said before, if they're making payments to you, there is interest. So it's still, you're not walking away with nothing. But a question that was asked was how many months does a person have to be able to come back and claim their property? So that's something I might include in our news journal, or I'm going to share a link in our Deed Dynasty Facebook group today that offers some information about that, because it varies. In some places it's 30 days, 180 days, other places it's 3 years. And that is something you want to think about when you're pulling together your overall strategy. Is waiting that 3 years something you want to do, where you're potentially collecting interest during that time? You kind of have to work the numbers and decide what is best for you. That's really what it boils down to. So it's been a pleasure. I'm here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Anna, so it's pretty far north. I'm relatively close to Oklahoma. If I hop on the freeway, I can get to Lake Texoma, which I really enjoy doing. I told you I love outdoor spaces, and so all of what I do really comes from this place of being able to be outdoors, to have land and have reclaim our power over land in a lot of cases. And then, of course, helping people have homes. There are ways to do that and, earn income on a monthly basis if you want to be a landlord, that I talked through in the academy. Reliable ways to do it through Section 8, which a lot of people talk about. I have about 7 other options for you that are reliable payments that may amount to not being as much to take on as Section 8 tenants. So, I really enjoy the mission side of what this is doing. It's we're creating and offering housing for people who need it. We are buying houses that have been pretty far removed. I mean, by the time something is at a tax deed or lien sale, people have had a chance to make the payments and cannot or have chosen not to. It's not quite as forward as knocking on someone's door and saying, "Hey, I have a friend who wants to pay cash for your house." I think we all have to find what works well for us. And so I'm glad that you are considering tax deeds and tax liens. Here's my email address. It's also linked on my website. And then if you want to chat, here's my link on Calendly. I'm happy to offer one free consultation to just talk through any questions that you have. So you guys are getting some awesome benefits today. You had the free class. I don't mind offering a free consultation. And then, of course, when you join me in the academy, you get those 2 free gifts, which will certainly make a difference in your overall real estate investing strategy. So this is not risk-free. It is rewarding. And I'm here to support you anytime. So thank you. And it's been a pleasure. Be well.